What's up, dudes? I'm Hunter. I'm 26. You want to hear something crazy? I had a female body swap mishap, and now I know what it's like to be a pregnant woman. Life was simpler before the pregnancy. My life was about motocross and racing dirt bikes. I worked with my best bud, fixing motors at his bike shop during the day, and come night, I was living it up with my girlfriend, Whitney. She tended bar at my favorite dive, and we got along as soon as we met. After we got serious, she let me move in. But then one day, everything changed, and it started because Dwayne fired me. Or maybe I quit. I didn't care for him acting like my boss, and we got into this big fight about it. He told me I was lucky to have the job, and I called him uptight. And then, I quit on him. I knew Whitney would get my back, but she dropped the bomb that she was preggo before I could tell her I lost my dirt bike gig. And can you believe that she sided with Dwayne? She said if he's the boss, he's the boss. But I wasn't going to take that kind of crap, especially not from Dwayne. I told her to relax and that I'd find a job before she could say, baby. I searched around on the streets and on the internet, but nobody was looking for a mechanic. So I had to consider something else. It wasn't exactly my dream job, but there was this laboratory of sorts that was looking to hire a janitor for the midnight shift. I would have to stay up all night cleaning all their offices and toilets and everything else these science slobs left around. The pay wasn't great, but it had some benefits. Whitney was already showing and wasn't able to pick up shifts at the bar. She said something about bar and mom that just didn't add up. I got the feeling Whitney was about to tell me that dirt bike and daddy don't add up. I didn't want things to change. I started having these nightmares where I was retiring from a 50-year career as a janitor. I wanted to quit, but I was stuck. My boss wasn't like my best friend, and no matter what I did, there was a critique to deal with. And Whitney was making things even worse. She was always in a foul mood, and nothing was good enough for her either. She'd ask me to go get chili cheese fries in the middle of the night. But by the time I got it home, the food made her sick, and she'd yell at me to get it away from her. I was slaving away to bring home the bacon. And then, once I'd get that bacon home, she'd want me to fry it up. But if I didn't fry it up just right, she'd turn her nose up at it. I just couldn't win. I'm telling you dudes, it was a vicious cycle. And I remember wishing that she could live in my shoes for a change. And maybe she'd be more grateful. But I never thought I'd get a chance to actually do it. One night, I was cleaning up the laboratory and I overheard one of those science guys recording himself. He was all excited about a body swap procedure that puts your consciousness into someone else's body by copying the mind and uploading it into the new vessel body. The science was complicated, but the procedure was simple. To be honest, it kinda tripped me out, but I couldn't look away. One night, I found a video where he demonstrated the swap on himself and his assistant. He put his eyes up to this machine that looked like what they use at the optometrist that was attached to an identical machine that his assistant looked into. There was a whir, the video cut out, and when it cut back in, they were astonished that they had traded bodies. I told Whitney all about it, and she almost didn't believe me, but she was fascinated. It wasn't until we got into another argument about the pregnancy that the idea first came to us. Whitney was ordering me to clean the bathroom, and I said she was acting like a spoiled princess. Looking back, it was a petty argument, and it wasn't long before she suggested body swapping. I think we were both daring each other, trying to prove that the other would be the first to back out. It was like a game of chicken, and we were staring each other down the whole time. We bickered constantly as we snuck in, and I started to think that we were bringing the worst out in each other. But we gave it a whirl, and everything went black. It was like I was dreaming, nothing except my thoughts and fears. I worried that the experiment had gone haywire, and I would never wake up from the darkness. But then I saw the light. The first thing I remember was having to pee like crazy, but I still didn't realize I was in Whitney's body until I went to the bathroom. The weight of pregnancy was making me sweat, and my emotions felt out of control. Whitney and I agreed to stay in each other's bodies until one of us gave in. That way, we could really tell who had it harder and who was taking advantage of things. That night, I went home thinking I was going to watch motocross all day and pig out on junk food and sleep in till noon. But I found that my body was a ball of hormones, and I was sobbing anytime some dude flipped out on his bike. My whole body ached from my feet to my shoulders. I could barely move without cramping, and my cravings were out of control. And don't get me started on the occasional contraction. I didn't realize how much pregnancy took it out of you. One day, Whitney and I had a heart-to-heart about our relationship. She told me sometimes she was afraid to ask for any kind of help. I always thought she was bossing me around, but she was just asking for help. I didn't see myself as overly sensitive, and I decided I would do a little investigating. I had this idea that I would stop by the bike shop, in Whitney's body of course, and I'd see what Daryl thought. Other than Whitney, he knew me best. We got to chatting. I complained about myself, and he thought he was talking to Whitney. I expected Daryl to get my back, but he said nobody could critique me without me flying off the handle. I went home feeling awful. In addition to realizing that I was a lousy friend and husband, my whole body was sore, and I couldn't bend down to untie my shoe without peeing on myself a little bit. I broke down and admitted to Whitney that I couldn't handle it. But then it got worse. We went back to the clinic to trade bodies and found that the equipment was gone. The doctor's office was suddenly vacant. We couldn't find anything. And then a barrage of contractions hit me. I grew terrified at actually giving birth. This was supposed to be an experiment, a game. I didn't want to give birth, but we couldn't switch back without the equipment. Whitney helped me home, and during her next shift, she asked around and found out that Dr. Malden was fired from the laboratory for use of preliminary body swapping technologies, and all of his work had been shut down. I couldn't sleep that night, so I looked up pregnancies on YouTube. And I thought I was watching a horror marathon. I begged for Whitney's help. I took everything I said back. I said I'd happily get her cheese fries or rub her back. I was so grateful when she said she would help. At the lab, Whitney searched the records in the HR office and found an address for this Dr. Malden character. When we got to his house, he was all paranoid and wouldn't let us in until we explained the video we saw. That got his attention, and we let him study our case in exchange for his help getting us the heck back in our own bodies. But then my water broke all over his floor. I was begging for an ambulance and sedatives, but Whitney told me to man up. If I held on a few minutes, she would take over for me and deliver our child. Everything went dark, and for a time, Whitney and I shared the same body. I could hear her voice in my head. She helped me relax. The pains were excruciating, but as I blinked back into my original body, I could see that it was Whitney doing all the heavy lifting. By the time we were back, we had a bouncing baby boy. Dr. Malden drove us to the hospital so Whitney and the baby could get checked out. I know now that to walk a mile in another's shoes is something that we should all strive to do. It takes empathy and kindness to consider what it's like for somebody before judging them. But what's funny is that once you do, you realize that you can have everything you want in the world if you'll simply help others get what they want. Since the pregnancy, I miss my time at home more and long for the days of a flexible schedule, like I had working with my buddy, Daryl. It took a little working up, but I swallowed my pride and asked Daryl for a second chance. I put myself in his shoes and figured he probably just wanted a little respect. I said I was happy to call him boss if he'd have me back as an employee. As far as Whitney and me, we learned that the best way to deal with our responsibilities was to share them just like we shared the pain in our pregnancy. She decided to go back and pick up some hours at the bar while I played stay-at-home dad on the weekends. Having a baby changes a lot, but some changes are a good thing, like being grateful for the things you have. Have you ever tried on someone else's shoes? Tell us about it in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more Hidden Wisdom stories. Remember, when you share our stories, you're sharing wisdom.